The media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the power to make the innocent guilty and to make the guilty innocent. And that's power, because they control the minds of the masses. Malcolm X said that. I'm DJ, and I want to talk to you about something. I want to talk to you about the media. The media is a great resource because it provides us with information that we otherwise wouldn't have access to. But when media outlets abuse that authority and push opinions or lies as facts, that's when it becomes dangerous. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines media as the system and organizations of communication through which information is spread to a large number of people. Since before the founding of the country, the media has played a significant role in the molding of the United States and has been used to reach the masses and to sway public opinion. Prior to the 20th century, newspapers were the primary source of mass communication. During the 18th and 19th centuries, newspapers evolved from being a source of communication for the wealthy to a political tool that was affordable and accessible for even the poorest of citizens. Believe it or not, newspapers were instrumental in lighting the fire that sparked the American Revolution, which led to the American Revolutionary War, which then led to the founding of the United States of America. In other words, powerful and influential people have been using the media to get poor and sometimes unsuspecting people on board with their ideas. The power of the media is evident when you think about the way they control many people's thoughts. The media has people believing that there were only two choices for president. You can run for president. I can run for president. And many people other than the two that the media really pushed ran for president. Do y'all remember that time when Barack Obama and Vladimir Putin met at the White House? And all the newspapers were reporting about how out of hand that meeting got. They were saying that it turned into a shouting match. Some people believe that meeting played a huge part in the rockiness of U.S.-Russia relations today. Guess what? That's not true. Forgive me, but Vladimir Putin has never even been to the White House. And that shouting match never happened. But that's how they get you. Remember to always keep your eyes wide open and never fall for the okie doke. I'm DJ, and I'm out. Thank you, DJ, for your colorful commentary. It's always great to hear from you. Likewise. Stay up, player. Today we're discussing the media, both the good and the bad. In order to understand how the media operates, you first need to understand what their job is. Their job is to capture your attention. And by capturing your attention, it generates revenue in many different ways. One of the key ways the media captures your attention is sensationalism. So what is sensationalism and why is it so dangerous? The Oxford Dictionary defines sensationalism as the use of exciting or shocking stories or language at the expense of accuracy in order to provoke public interest or excitement. Do you remember the Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando? The shooter, Omar Mateen, made a 911 call and pledged allegiance to the Islamic State before he killed 49 people and injured 53 more. ISIS later took credit for the attack, issuing a statement through the news agency affiliated with the terror group. If you remember the initial news coverage, you know how big of a deal this was, and you remember all the anger that surrounded this attack. Then after about 2 weeks, the story went cold. I was looking on the internet and I can't find a single story within the past month regarding this. I don't claim to know what happened, but I feel like a follow-up is in order considering how much this story was sensationalized. You would have thought ISIS was ready to invade the United States that week. But when the details started coming out and it was revealed that Omar Mateen was a patron of this club and that he was part of this community, the story goes dead. I won't claim to know why the media handled the story as it did and dropped it so abruptly. But the sensationalism that caused the entire country to start going in a certain direction and thinking a certain way is something that I want to point out. Moving on. Here's a fact that you probably didn't know. Over 70% of the police that were killed in 2016 were killed by white males. I'm sharing this with you because the media generally chooses not to. And you likely haven't seen many non-African American shooters in the news. The focus is more on black people targeting police and police targeting black people. The media often chooses to misrepresent or underrepresent these facts because it sells, and they're in the money-making business. They feel like if they don't jump on these stories and put a good spin on them, somebody else will, thus capturing your attention and the money from the advertisers. Blowing stories up into something bigger than it actually is what the media does. And that's sensationalism at its finest. Think about the protests in Portland, Oregon. They were huge, and it was the only thing that you saw on the news for a week or two following the presidential election. No coverage now though, right? Well, guess what? Those protests are still going on, but the media sucked the life out of that story, so it's no longer relevant to them. So they've moved on and left that behind. Let's talk about police shootings and use of excessive force. Regardless of what anybody says, race does play a part in these stories, and the media is partly to blame. So many people have been trained to think a certain way and take certain sides, and they don't even realize that they do it most of the time. The media's role in this is clear whenever they put out a headline that mentions the race of the perpetrator, the police, or the victim. This generates clicks. It generates views, which turns into revenue. And that's what it all boils down to. Let's talk about wars. War, or any military conflict, cannot happen without presidential and congressional approval. I mean, let's be honest. Congressmen want to stay in office. It's a lucrative position. So they will not make these moves without the public being on board with it. How do you get the public on board with it? You got it. The media.